What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode number 344 of the A2D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. Today's episode, again, number 344, is entitled Be Aware, Not Beware. And I'd like to start out by welcoming the new listeners from Saudi Arabia, Armenia, Czechia, Tajikistan, and Myanmar. That brings the total up to 114 countries. Thank you so much, everybody. But let's get into this episode today. Be aware, not beware. Let me start by defining those terms. Merriam-Webster says beware is a verb that means be on your guard, watch out for danger, or be very careful about a person or thing. So if we think about it, beware, when we use that term, it means danger, judging something to be risky or a threat to you, and warning you to be alert, warning other people to be alert too. So in a way, when you hear the word beware, it often includes labeling a person or a place as something that is scary. And with that comes then an attached stigma. But according to Merriam-Webster, be aware, another way to say that would be awareness, is the state of knowing, understanding, or perceiving that something exists or is happening. And awareness is key as I'm working with people coming out of addiction, because awareness is really the first step towards understanding yourself, understanding your past, understanding why things happened the way they did, and understanding how to change to move forward. And I'd like to give you a quote that I like that ties into this from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist, who said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And I think that's so true for most of the people that I work with. The things that were in your unconscious part of your brain really were directing your life. The pains, the wounds, the past stuff, the rejection, the abandonment was directing your life, and you were just sort of calling it fate, like I've always been a loner. But when you make the unconscious conscious, you can turn things around. The next point I'd like to make is awareness is not to bring fault, but to bring truth. And Jiddu Krishnamurti was an Indian spiritual figure, speaker, and writer, and he said, "Awareness is observation without condemnation. Awareness brings understanding because there is no condemnation or identification, but silent observation." You get it? Some people may say they want to make us aware of something, but they're bringing it from condemnation, and that only throws up our defenses, and we stop listening, or we lash back at them because we feel like we're being lashed at. So awareness is observation without condemnation. Awareness also helps us know something that we didn't know that we didn't know. So previously we didn't know it, and we didn't know it was something to talk about or ask for help about. So again, that phrase is awareness helps us know something that we didn't know that we didn't know. And I'd like to use a quote by Anthony DeMello, an Indian Jesuit priest and psychotherapist, who said, "Wisdom tends to grow in proportion to one's awareness of one's ignorance." So that category of we didn't know what we didn't know, we were ignorant to it. But when we become aware of what we didn't know, wisdom can grow. Awareness, in my mind, opens the door for taking responsibility and self-accountability. Naming something gives you power over it, by making the unknown clear. So when we become aware of something and can put a name to it, the power shifts to us, and it gives us now a chance to try to understand it more, calm down, stop stressing, stop living in fear, and you gain control over your situation. Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, once said, "Knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom." And to me, that's what it's all about. Knowing yourself opens the door for taking responsibility and self accountability. Okay, get that kind of wisdom. Another aspect of awareness, it is vital to behavioral change and character development and transformation. It's not just a light bulb moment. It's not just changing behavior, but understanding why you do what you do and why you did what you did. And this comes because we become aware of our wound from the past. We gain understanding of that, understanding of how it was hurt inside of us, and how that became our lifestyle of seeking that comfort on and on, over and over again for decades for many of us. It was no longer us even seeking the comfort, but once we got there, we realized, there's that comfort again. And I'd like to give you a quote by James Thurber, the American writer and humorist, who said, "Let us not look back in anger, nor forward in fear, but around in awareness." So, with this idea of not just a light bulb going on and something that can help us with character development, transformation, behavioral change, we can't be focused on anger or fear, depression, sadness, remorse, guilt, all those things. But looking around in awareness gets us to that point where we can take the steps to find true transformation. You see, just behavior modification is not the focal point. Awareness and understanding of why these behaviors became our lifestyle is what is important. This allows us to clearly see the rationalization, minimization, and deception that we've been living in for many years, that others have called manipulation, controlling, lying, narcissistic, and thrown labels at us left and right. And when you can see clearly where they're coming from based on your rationalization, minimization, deception, then you can decide the positive character traits that you want and need to be developed in you. This can help us avoid a lot of the stigma and get back involved in a life that we never knew we'd get back to. Many of you often have felt what President George H.W. Bush in 1990 called the shameful wall of exclusion. He said that line referring to what Americans with disabilities felt and were trapped behind this wall before the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990. And I want to challenge you to think about it. As an addict, were you also trapped behind this wall of exclusion from family, from friends, from places to live, places to work, churches? Were you excluded in shame from the very help and support that you so desperately needed? And the only options that you had were the streets, homeless shelters, rehabs, prison, living in the bush. And even worse, did you find that you could get in a shelter or rehab only to find that there was no place to go after the time in those havens came to an end? And there was no place to go because too many bridges had been burned through addictive behaviors, broken trust, and broken hearts. So that even when finding a new life was possible, finding a full life served like an elusive and impossible dream. Being alive, but not feeling alive because of the stigma, the wall of exclusion. And I believe this wall of exclusion came while we were caught in our lack of awareness for all those years. In closing, I'd like to quote off the book cover, Truth Set Me Free by Gigi Johanna. And on the book cover it says, Truth set me free, my testimony of how God gently untangled me from the web of lies I was caught in and restored my heart with His truth, a journey from confusion to clarity, pain to peace. Sounds like a great testimony. So I want to close with this challenge to you. Be aware, and Gigi's testimony could be yours. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. You can get in touch with me on the link in this podcast episode or by email at davidfroma2d@gmail.com or go to my website, www.from2d.org, and click on the contact page. Keep listening to future podcast episodes, and as always, stay safe and stay resilient.